Welcome to the Going Rogue with Wes Whitlock podcast. Yeah, I'm excited today. I have Alan Shebaro here, a guy I've been kind of following for a while and have some mutual friends within the industry and military and stuff like that. Just another guy that's doing really cool stuff, has done a lot of cool stuff in his life, and just another one of those guys that's out there exceeding what's expected in life. So I want to thank him for coming, and Alan's done a lot of cool stuff. He's a 4th degree black belt, the first one in Special Forces, I believe. The guy has done a lot. He's a Green Beret. He's also co-founder of Weedify Foundation, a very cool foundation doing great things for veterans. So we'll talk some about that a little bit. And he also owns a business, Tier 1 Training. I believe he's still running that as well. And yeah, man, so thanks for coming, dude. I'm excited to have you.
I appreciate the invite.
Right on. So first, man, you've done a lot, dude. You've done a lot of stuff, and we kind of find patterns within certain guys that we like to bring in, and that's kind of why we did this podcast, Going Rogue, kind of guys doing what's inside of them and not really following the patterns of life. So, and I've seen a lot of your stuff on your training and your jiu-jitsu and military life, but I don't see a lot on your before that, man. Like where did you grow up?
Actually, I was raised overseas. My father was a DOD civilian. He was a comptroller for the Army, and then ended up being a comptroller for the Navy. So I ended up moving around Europe pretty much all my life in the Middle East. Didn't even move back to the States until I was 18. So Germany, wow. Italy, Austria, Saudi Arabia, France, various different places. But most of the time was spent in Italy and Germany and Austria. So I actually got to watch the wall come down in '89 when I was in Germany.
Really?
Yeah, that was a trip.
Dude, I remember watching that in high school on TV, and you were there. I think that's really cool to know, man, because I think it helps kind of understand kind of your philosophy, and I'm sure that had a big impact on you growing up as a kid, growing up in those environments, opening up your mind and learning different things. And so that's really interesting, because I didn't know. I couldn't find anything else on you as far as how you grew up. So that says a lot. Do you feel that growing up in those environments probably had a big impact on you? Absolutely. As even now?
Yeah, definitely. Just the understanding of different cultures, especially being raised up with it, gives you an entirely new perspective, especially when you're going into like a deployment type situation. You have a much better awareness of the culture, and and even just basics of like the economy and so forth, things like that. You just have a better understanding and grasp of it from being raised up in it. It's after the fall of the Soviet Union, the East German bloc was almost at bankruptcy, and then the West was actually its prime, and then it had to kind of level back out, and how that kind of trickled effect over. And I've always been big history buff, so I loved history. So learning how the influence in Europe after World War I and World War II, and then as I was living there, I got to actually experience that 40 years after World War II, and then being raised around the military my entire life on military bases, so I got to understand both sides of it. And then being raised up in that, I have definitely a unique perspective on it that I definitely appreciated. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome, and I tell guys all the time, and even my own kids, like, if you can go overseas as you're young or as you're coming up and you have that opportunity to go overseas or live overseas, that it's probably the best education I think somebody can get, especially in America, and and they need to go and explore some of these things. So that's really cool, and it's another unique part, I believe, about you and your life in general. So you come back to the States when you're 18. So most of your life you were growing up overseas. You come back when you're 18, and at that point thinking about joining an army, or had you already known? No.
So the weird thing is that growing up, I was really big into skateboarding since I was like 10 or 11.
Bro, see that?
Yeah, I did see that. Where actually I was staring at it while I was talking to him. I was like, yeah, that was the same. That's I think the '88
Yeah,
yeah, like
Kyle,
88,
yeah.
So,
That's cool, man. I was the same way, man. I grew up skating like that big time, and that's had still a lot of influence on some of my designs today. You know what I mean? That cool artwork from the '80s boards.
Yeah, and so the problem is that when I got into skateboarding, I was actually living in Italy. So, the weather was.
Ti parliano italiano?
Sì.
Hai capito?
Sì. Sono andato a scuola italiana per 2 anni.
Va bene, va bene.
It wasn't a choice, but I had to go to school there.
That's fucking cool, man. Dude, right on.
And so when we were living in Italy, that's when I started up in it. So I could skateboard all the time, but it still wasn't a big thing. But when we moved to Germany shortly after, and this was in '88, there was snow on the ground 9 months out of the year. So there was literally like at a bus stop in a little 10 by 10 area. I was trying to skateboard around and try to do ollies on the bench, but it got really boring really fast, and it was freaking cold.
You got to get creative there.
Absolutely. But what was available to me right then, within walking distance, was trying to get to the Zugspitze, which was the highest mountain in Germany. It was one of the best spots to actually go skiing or snowboarding, and in my opinion, all of Germany and arguably all of Europe. It was phenomenal. So I got heavily into snowboarding to the point where, I was going every weekend. I had it marked off, and basically I bought my season pass, and I used it so much that I paid it 5-6 times over. So it was a hell of an investment for me, and I got to kind of get that part of me out. It was a lot of fun, and I couldn't have been in a better place going through that phase.
Yeah, that's really freaking cool, man. And being able to transition from not being able to skate like you could and jumping into the snowboarding, kind of the same type of stuff.
And it was the very first snowboard was the one with the metal tail at the very bottom, the Burton.
The Burton, yeah.
And then I got the first Craig Kelly.
Yeah.
So I got into snowboarding from there, and then all through my high school years, that's all I was doing, and then ended up going back to the States and continuing on. So the first year that I got back, like most people, they graduate from high school and they want to go backpacking in Europe. Well, since I never lived in the States, that's what I want to do is kind of go backpacking around the States, but more centered around snowboarding. So I ended up going out to California for a season, and then going up to Washington for a little bit, and then ended up going back to where my father was at MacDill Air Force Base. So my parents were out there, and ended up going to an air show. And this is before snowboarding was in the Olympics. It wasn't like a big thing. It was kind of like the old skateboarding days, where you still had the decal. Skateboarding's not a crime.
Right.
There was a lot of places where you couldn't go snowboarding because it was just off limits. It was just for skiing. So it was that far in the beginning. But that was like everything I wanted to do was just snowboarding. And then didn't really have much of a plan past that. So parents suggested, try it out. Everyone in my family was in the military, so I went to an air show and talked to an Army recruiter. Next day, I already signed up, so spontaneous.
I would have assumed that growing up in a military family and environment that was just going to be your natural path that you already knew, but it obviously wasn't.
No.
You were adventuring, you were snowboarding, and I think what I see with you and what I understand is when you do something, like, you go all out, man. You go extreme, dude, which is rad. That's how you get really good at stuff, and probably love the adrenaline of it as well. I think it's awesome, man. I didn't snowboard so much. I grew up in Utah, which I should have. We'd go down to the park and go down the hills and stuff, but nothing crazy. But skateboarding was everything. We'd go break into the swimming pools, and like you said earlier, back then there wasn't skate parks. You just had to make the park out of whatever environment you had, So, and I think, I don't know, between skateboarding and snowboarding, stuff like that, kind of, I don't know, there's something really neat about it, especially in those days, the art behind it and the music and the sense of freedom and stuff like that brings that vibe out of you, So that's cool. I'm sure surfing's the same way. I haven't tried that, but
that's the same. I've been wanting to try surf for the longest time. Everyone says exactly what you said. It's like one of the best ways of like individual expression of your artistic self, and the closest way to connect with nature is what I've heard.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times. And that's the one up they have on snowboarding, is that you don't have that same connection, and that's connection to keep for life. So
yeah, man,
I'm not done. I'm going to try it.
No, I'm sure I'm sure you're going to be doing that at some point again soon, man. Fuck, dude, a lot of cool stuff. So from there, you join the Army. I'm going in and talk to the recruiter, and then decide to join.
So I initially went in as, because at the time I spoke German, I spoke Italian, I spoke English, and so I was trying to be anything to do with languages and trying to get back into the mountains. So I ended up trying for an interpreter, and I was trying to end up back in Vicenza, where I grew up. It was just a couple hours away from the mountains, so I could, a good middle ground.
Yeah.
So
I want to get back to all that pasta, man.
And the thing is I'm not going to say that it's an individual thing, but I definitely didn't understand how the process worked, because what I had filled out was what I had been explained. There was a guarantee to be able to go to Italy, to have the $25,000 college bonus, to go airborne and air assault, all lined up, nice pretty package. So as soon as I show up to Fort Jackson, they're like, oh no, go ahead and fill out your dream sheet. So I'm like, no, I got this. I already have it guaranteed. And they're like, no, you don't. What do you mean? So I started looking back, and he's like, is this what you're talking about? I was like, yeah, this is a counseling statement. I was like, ouch. So what am I going to be doing? He's like, well, you signed up as a mechanic. And I thought that was like, well, that was just to get me here. And then they said the school was like right across the street or something.
Yep.
So I did my first 3 years as a mechanic, and it was a diesel mechanic with the cut V, deuce and a half. Yep. All the things that they discontinued within 5 years. So I got my foot in the door, started kind of doing it that way, kind of get understanding of the Army, kind of grew up in it. But that was it. I mean, I didn't really gain many skills. There wasn't anything going on at the time. I mean, I joined in '95, so that was a few years after Somalia.
Yep.
Bosnia was dying down. I mean, so there really wasn't anything. So I figured, after that first enlistment in '99, I'll just get out. But I just didn't feel like I'd done anything. So everything I've been told, in garrison, the highest honor that you can do is to be a drill sergeant. And so that's where I went to actually do it while I was going to school. But it was in a reserve unit. So, but just being able to have the title and go to school and do some time on the trail, that was the highest pinnacle of what I was trying to achieve, because, again, there was nothing else.
Yeah, I remember those years. I went in '93, and it's funny you say that, because a very similar scenario happened to me. Went in, I knew I wanted to join the Marines. That's what I wanted to do. I want to jump out of helicopters and do all this cool shit. And, I go in there, same thing. Hey, man, sign here. And I didn't know. I didn't have parents or anybody in there, like, guiding me. I didn't know anything, So I just went in there and signed shit, dude. And thinking that's what, I was going to do. Go to boot camp, and after they start reading the list of what schools you're going to, same thing, Motor T. He was like 3531. I was like, what the hell's that? It's like truck driver. I was like, fuck, I don't want to do this other stuff. So, but is what it is. I went in and I did 3 years, same thing, driving trucks and all that. And, it was, for me, it was the same thing. It was like, this is not, I was a first-class shooter, first-class PFTer. Like, I wanted to do other things. But then this was 93, 94, 95. Like you said, there wasn't a whole lot going on. And then I found out about the Marine Security Guard program, and getting back overseas and doing some stuff that I thought was pretty cool back then. So I applied for that and eventually made my way over there, and that's where all the other doors for me opened up. But very similar scenario. So all these young guys that, I don't know, today is probably better, but make sure you're in there signing the right stuff and understanding what you're signing. But things happen, and then you just make the best of it, and that's how I. Whatever happens in life, you just make the best of it. And then with that, you can make changes along the way.
Yep.
So that's also same thing, man. Drill sergeant, like that's pretty badass, man. I remember seeing those guys and the DIs and all that, and saying that's like the fucking pinnacle of it. This the whole thing, because it was so cool. And I still think those guys are awesome. So That's badass. So you went in drill sergeant. What is that? 2-year tour or something like that?
So because it was a reserve unit, I actually joined up right after I came off active duty. So from '99, and then went to drill sergeant school at Fort Jackson in 2000. And then so the odd thing was I actually re-enlisted July of 2001, and for a 5-year contract. And then just a few months later, 9/11 kicked off, and I was stuck in this contract. And that's when I realized, I was like, now I know there's more to it. I need to do something else. And what even motivated me even more was just the simple fact that they were actually going to deploy my unit to Fort Sill for 2 years. And I didn't want anything to do with that. I spent my, the 2 weeks a year, on the trail, and sometimes more. But I wanted to get in the fight. I didn't want to sideline this one.
Yeah.
And I didn't want, to be, risking guarding silos or, running a patrol around the base or anything like that. So if I figured if I'm going to go, I'm going to go to the guys that make a difference, that actually play a heavy role. And what always I gravitated toward was the guys that did what they needed to do outside of the limelight. So do what they needed to do. Things got done without anyone ever knowing who did it, when it got done, or how it got done. It just got done. There was always that mystique to it that always got kind of gravitated toward. It was definitely for me. So
that quiet professional.
Exactly.
Awesomeness.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then you go through selection.
I wish it was that easy. So because I re-enlisted, I had to do I was going back and forth with paperwork for the longest time, and I had a new commander that actually told me, basically sat me down and said, if you fuck this up, you're going to owe me time, but I'll actually sign you off so you can go and try it for selection. But that's the deal. So you fuck up, you don't make it, you come back here, you owe me your time plus 2 more years. Deal.
Wow.
So I had to do a transfer from the Reserve to National Guard out in Mississippi in Grenada. So I was driving like 8 hours one way so I could make my weekend drill. And that was like for 9 months. And I was about to give up on that because they do like the orienteering training, all the land nav, your PT tests, and basically kind of get you prepped up for selection. But once you made it, and I made it after like the second month, and everything else just becomes repetitive. I already did this, ready to go. I've been doing all the rucking at my house and when I was back in Texas. And so literally was about to give up. This is around the same time frame where I got my black belt in jiu-jitsu, and I was training a lot with Travis Luter. So he was about to go pro in MMA, and the manager that we had, he only represented 3 people at the time. It was myself, Travis Luter, and Matt Serra. Well, not like 2 weeks later, I get a call from the unit saying, okay, we got you a date for selection. And so now I had to decide whether I was going to go pro in MMA or actually, go to selection and go that route. So I figured, this is something where, very much fewer people make it. And I want the bigger challenge. So I just went ahead and went SF. Kind of bit me in the ass later. I just remember being there in like 2007. I was with the SIF. We just came back from this freaking long ass mission. It was like 14 hours or something like that. And I remember getting to the chow hall, and I'm just stinking like ass, sweaty, dusty, everything. Sit down, I look up, and I see Travis Luter and Matt Serra won the Ultimate Fighter, and they got the contracts, and I was just like, and I'm just looking at myself, smelling myself, going, maybe I didn't make the right decision.
I can't even imagine like being in that I could see it, like they're sweating, dirty, tired, hungry, and you look up and see the 2 guys that you were with before doing that. Not saying that that's better or cooler in any way, but being in that scenario, looking at that, but I think, and I'm sure you'd agree to say you probably still made the right decision of going SF and serving your country, and that says a lot about you too, man. Guys like Tillman and guys like yourself that take that other route and say, you know what, there's a bigger purpose than me. I want to be part of something bigger than that. So that's you find that pattern in a lot of these guys like yourself. So that's I think that's awesome. But you also are still a good fighter, man. You still all that in you too. You know what I mean? Like, what dude is? I mean, freaking black belt, SF. I think the first one, right?
I don't claim to be the first one in the Army because I can't verify it. So
right,
I just say one of the
not
first.
Too many.
Yeah, and then but at regiment, yes, that I can verify that I was the first one in regiment.
Yeah, that's
SF regiment.
I think that's pretty freaking awesome, man. So yeah, now you're in. Was this after selection or Q course or already in?
For which part?
When you're there, dirty. And
oh no, that was my first deployment.
You're already deployed at this point. Okay, so even more of a gut punch there, a little bit. All right, so you're deployed and you're with your guys. This was in Iraq.
Yep.
Yeah.
All my rotations were in Iraq.
Okay.
That was one of the funny parts is get to see the world and join the Army and yay, Iraq.
After being in so many freaking awesome countries, you ended up there. But hey, that's where the shit was happening. So whatever the duty calls, and you were third group.
Yes.
Third group, yeah.
So I started out in with 20th group out in Mississippi, National Guard unit, and then as soon as I graduated from the Q courses, when I went to I went back active duty. It was more by chance than anything else, because while I was at the Q course, I was going to the gyms and lifting, and there were guys that were doing jiu-jitsu out there, and when they were out there, it just irked me. I couldn't keep watching. I'm like, hey man, you mind if I jump in and kind of help y'all out a bit,
Right.
So, one session, and they're like, hey, you gonna come back tomorrow? I was like, yeah, I'll be here lifting. I'll get done around this time. So I just kept going more, and as embarrassing as it sounds, there's so many acronyms, but they're like, oh, yeah, we're third group CIF. I just got done with CIF, which was the Central Issue Facility, so I'm like thinking these guys are more pogues than anything else, or, administrative position. And and so I just ignored it and just kept going. So this went on for several months. And then coming close to graduating from the Q course, they were asking, where you're going to be going, what are you going to be doing. And one of the guys, Steve Nix, was one of the 18 Deltas in the company. Pulled some strings and said, "Hey, we can pull you right on, and go right to the CIF," which was it wasn't unheard of, but it definitely was rare. Matter of fact, there's only a few cases I know about. Tim's one of them.
Yeah.
That literally went straight from the Q course into the CIF, because normally you have to do a couple years on the team. You have to do at least, I believe, 1 or 2 deployments. You go through the interview, go through their tryout, finish SOCQC at least, and then you can go in and go on the B team, and then you earn your way up to an A team. And just the way the cards fell was, I was fortunate enough to go straight on there. And my first rotation, there wasn't. I wasn't assigned to a specific team. I was just jumping on with every team that I could anytime they went out. So it didn't matter. I just wanted to keep going out and gain experience because my first deployment. And then I was with, operators that had been 10 years in, hundreds of missions. And I just felt inadequate, being there. And I wanted to make sure I earned my keep. I wanted to be an asset, not a liability. So I was gunner one night, was driver the next night, was pulling security the other night. Cordon for this guy, stay with the vehicle on this one, the 50 gun, the mini gun, the Mark 19, whatever that needed to be done, I volunteered for, just to kind of get as much experience, and that way I kind of knew how the players worked and how they moved, and a much better understanding of things.
Yeah, no, it's like you said, asset over liability, and that's kind of what I think. And again, another pattern I see with a lot of these guys is it's always like, find a job. There's a whole fill it,
Yep.
Head on a swivel, find, working with those type of guys that you don't have to question. Dude's going to jump on that gun, or he's going to fill that position without really having to say anything, and that's, what you find in those communities, and maybe a lot of guys have a problem with that when they get out, explaining that to your work environment or new environment, because, most civilians don't know that, or they just haven't had that experience or exposure, so they wouldn't. So you're obviously in the right world that you've kind of fell into. You've also prepared. It's also, somebody who's obviously driven and has that inner passion to do extreme things in life. And that's kind of what I wanted to see. What is it inside you that makes you want to do that? What is it that's has that always been there since you were a kid, or is there a switch in there that just makes you continually push to be the best and be that asset in everything that you do?
Man, I'll be perfectly honest with you. It's not something that I realized until maybe just a few years ago. Matter of fact, it became abundantly clear when my wife and I were taking dance lessons for the first time. And at the end of it, I'm like, are there any dance competitions coming up? Anything like that? I mean, literally, I'm stepping on my wife's toes just constantly. I'm just trying, okay, now I'm thinking like Dancing with Stars. That's the goal. So
that's that competitive nature.
So my wife's like looking at me going, I want to try just getting the first stick, step.
You're already thinking competition.
Yeah. I'm like, what kind of shoes can I get, to make me slick, to have the advantage on that.
Yeah.
And looking back, it was the same thing. I got into skateboarding. I don't have a hobby mindset. Anything that I do, I literally just want to be the best at it.
Yeah.
If I'm going to, when I was in boot camp, go clean the toilets. I would clean the best fucking toilets.
Yeah.
Clean enough for the president to come in and just, there you go. The royal throne ready for you, spick and span, top to bottom, all the nuts greased up, everything's done. It just, that's the way I was raised. That's the way my father kind of no matter what you do, be the best at what you do.
Yeah.
And throughout the years, that just kind of solidified more and more, and then and it didn't matter what I did anymore. It was be the best. Now, it kind of backfires sometimes, because I don't have that middle ground where I can just enjoy things, or I have to literally put myself in a mental state where I'm like, I'm just going to chill. I'm just going to enjoy going, whether it doesn't even matter what it is.
Well, I saw that in one of your videos. You were talking about when you get onto the podium and you've won a match.
Yeah.
That you might enjoy it for those few seconds, minutes, whatever, and then you step off it, and it's like, all right, my God, that's done. Move on to the next thing.
Yep. So I take off that medal, and then the first thing I'm doing is going back, looking through the videos, going, I should have done this or should have done that, and I just plan right away. And now, of course, if there's injuries involved, I'll just be, looking at videos and stuff. But
what was the one that you broke your spine or something? Didn't even know it.
Yeah, that was one of those other things where I should just stop being so damn stubborn and just kind of okay, call it quits. But
that's how you're built, man. Yeah.
I couldn't. I couldn't. My mentality after that happened, when I kind of came back to, was, I'm going to put this back on you. I'm going to make you feel, how hard that I want to beat you. So it wasn't beating him in this sense. There's a whole nother lane of I want you to remember this match for the rest of your life. And it mainly, and it wasn't illegal what he did, but it was excessive. And there were, but again, it wasn't illegal. It was just me not being accustomed to the rules. And in the end, he didn't do anything wrong, technically. But what actually was becoming more clear is that, his utter frustration that he had to go to that in order to escape. So all his technique was out the window. He had to use his height and weight and athleticism to get out of that. And so that even motivated me more. And I just remember the sharp pain when it hit, and then that probably the adrenaline dump is just going after him. After that, I just forgot about what happened until after, where I was just like, okay, something's weird now with my arm, and especially the weeks and months following, and so muscular atrophy on my left side, and my arm, my leg, and it was was strange. It took a few years to get off to that. And then every time I was hurting my neck again, it would, kind of start the clock over. It'd take like a year or two to kind of get back over. My absolute last jump, static line, in 2009, the entire chalk ended up in the trees, everybody, and it whipped my neck and damaged it again. Almost the same thing. It was just when I landed, just like a whip, and that took a couple years to get over as well. So it never really fully healed properly, and I just had surgery for it last year. So
wow.
I'll be able to keep it straight now.
Okay, so your injury. So when you first sustained that injury, it took you about 3 years to kind of not fully heal probably, but kind of get stronger, get back into the game. And this was before you joined the Army?
This was 2001, actually, yeah. Okay. July 2001 as well.
So you had to go through all your training, your military training as well, on top of that injury.
Yeah.
Wow. So was that hurting in between that whole time?
So by 2004, when I was actually going back in active duty, or through the National Guard to go to the Q course and selection, I kind of made it past that hump. Because initially it was basically like as soon as I started feeling good is around the same time frame where I was actually able to go to selection. So normally it would be my back that was hurting because it was just kind of lopsided, but I healed up just in time for that. So it worked out well. Timing of it was excellent. So I really can't complain. I didn't have any serious injuries going in. I'm not going to lie about that, but it healed up before I got out there.
Yeah. Wow. Still, yeah, that's a lot to even have in the back of your mind, thinking, man, it could happen again as you're training.
Yeah. Absolutely. That was definitely a fear.
So but you continue on. You get through training, and you're in. As you're in the entire time you're in the Army and with SF, you continue to train jiu-jitsu and martial arts, or have you kind of stopped at this point a little bit?
No, in the Q course, I did. Matter of fact, Tim and I were training a lot. But when I got to third group, the sergeant major that I had was very clear. So some of the more, sergeant major, the commander, and basically I got sat down like, okay, you're an operator, not a fighter. You decide you want to be the other. Let me know now.
They probably told you and Tim the same thing.
But they weren't too keen on me competing or training on, because I was either in schools or deployed. So, I mean, literally constantly. And that's one thing I really loved about being in SF and, that time frame especially is that I got back from my first deployment, 4 months later, I'm back out. So in between that, I got to go to a couple of schools, and so all my time is filled up. I'm single, no wife, no kids, so it worked out great for me. I freaking loved it, every bit of it. They told me I had more schools to go to. I'd be like, yeah, okay, I'll go. Yeah, absolutely. Didn't matter what it was, driving schools, shooting schools. That's one aspect that I fucking love.
Yeah,
I really love that. The more knowledge, the better off you're going to be. The better person you can be, and then it just enhances the whole team benefit.
Yeah.
So
yeah, being that asset. Yeah, it's and
being that asset.
Yeah,
exactly.
Taking those opportunities that come and say, you know what, hey, put me in there. Let me try it out. Let me go through, get schooled up on something. Yeah, man. I think it just it's just reflects your nature, and just being that person that's pushing, even with injuries and even with knowing that could happen. And not being scared. I think, maybe a lot of guys are held back because of that, that fear of, and I've had it, I'm like, well, fuck, what if this happens or that happens if I do this? But you have to be willing to take those chances sometimes to grow and get better. Dude, right on. Okay, so not only that, Alan's done a lot of cool stuff, and he works with a really cool foundation called Weedify. I actually learned about them. It's kind of a long story. This was I don't know, 2 years ago.
I'm really curious about this.
Yeah, so I work, Joey, War Paint Joey out in Virginia Beach that does the art, and of course, and like Tom Hardy Venom, who is a big supporter of ours. He's probably our #1 customer, and him and Joey are tight. Tom works with the Reorg Foundation and with the Royal Marines, who you know well. And Tom and Joey approached me and asked me if we wanted to do a collaboration with the Reorg to help on, for a shirt to help raise some funds for their foundation. And absolutely, hell yeah. So I looked into them and checked them out, and I was like, this is rad. This is cool what these guys are doing. And then they introduced us into Weedify. Said, hey, this is the American side of what Reorg does, taking combat wounded veterans and giving them scholarships to join the jiu-jitsu culture and helping them recover or helping them get back into the mindset of being having that purpose and being very beneficial towards whatever injuries they have or PTSD, and finding that it's really beneficial. And I've learned since meeting you guys in these foundations, I actually started myself because of that. I said, I can't be involved with this if I'm not doing it myself, so I joined up. So I'm still a baby at it, but I liked what I was seeing and what I was hearing from a lot of guys. Even when I'd started, I talked to a couple guys there, said it fucking changed their lives. They were in really down and outs, and then they joined, and they have that purpose again. And once you do it, then you feel it. You're like, all right, cool, because everything, it's just like shooting. You're just thinking your front sight. When you're there, you're not thinking of anything else. And when you leave, you leave feeling really good. So that introduction happened, and we started working with the Reorg. I met Sam and met some of your guys that had come down, and I just liked what I was seeing and studying it more and seeing what you guys are doing, and then that's when I found out about you and saw what you were about. It really motivated me to want to get involved in some way. We've always tried to work with foundations. I built my businesses on always having that sense of giving back to our communities in some way, shape, or form. As you are able to prosper and grow, that you should stay involved with those things and help others. So when I found out about you guys in Reorg, I said, this is something I could truly see helping dudes. And I've talked, it's not doing push-ups, it's this shit's really changing dudes' lives. And then met Mark, who's over there, who's triple amputee, who just got his blue belt, I think. And then your founder as well, I believe, Joey
Yep.
has, I believe from what I saw, he came into your gym, brought his daughter, and then you guys started talking, and it kind of developed the Weedify culture.
Yep.
So, dude, anybody out there, make sure you check out Weedify or Reorg and go and see what they're about, because it's freaking cool. And maybe you can, tell us a little bit more about the mission and what you've seen firsthand from dealing directly with the guys on the ground, literally. So yeah, man, I love it.
So it all evolved from Joey, actually. So for me, after, this was 5 years ago, so 18 years of doing the same sport, not saying burned out, but you kind of get settled into it in a sense, to where the excitement's kind of gone. You have these spurts here and there, but it's pretty much a lifestyle, and you've been involved in it so much. Nothing's really spicy about it,
Yep.
And then as you walked in, and bad choice of words, as you came in, and we started talking, the biggest thing was my attraction to being able to work with them was the entire reinvention of teaching. I've been teaching already for like 18 years, 16 years, and it wasn't, of course, I'm by no means any way stretch of the imagination saying I know how to do it all, teach it all, but this was an entirely new aspect. The center axis of gravity is entirely different. The way he pushes to gain the torque or momentum or force. Well, now he has 2 titanium femurs, so the muscle flaps wrapped over, so he can't stay on the legs, and he only has 70% of his hand, or he can't turn it over in this way. He only has half of his right arm, and all these different things. Where to even start? So I was there for like, I to this day remember the little green notebooks that you get, it's a supply books.
Yeah, I got one back there. I still use it.
Yeah, when you're lifting, right, you have
yeah.
notes. So I did mine for jiu-jitsu. I had 8 pages front and back of all the different things that we could try. Literally within the first week, I had to scrap like 6 pages, and we had 2 pages to start with. But from that very base that we had, it literally just grew and grew and grew, and you started learning a whole plethora of different techniques that we could chain together, and the mechanics were sound. But we noticed something else. That wasn't just him getting better. We noticed he was losing weight. We noticed an entirely different change in his personality. He was becoming more comfortable around people. He started paying attention more to even his family. Just things that, almost like a veil had been lifted, that he could actually see, and it was an amazing transformation. Within like 6-7 months, he dropped almost 40 pounds. I think it was like 37 pounds. He was happier than ever. He had a goal in mind. Now he had like, hey, I want to lose this weight. I want to do this competition. And without even having to discuss it, he's like, but I only want to do it against regular abled. And his entire rationale for that was the reason why he got to jiu-jitsu in the first place was to be able to defend his family. And so the likeliness that another amputee coming in to try to rob him is slim to none, versus an able-bodied person, with all their limbs. So he wanted to make sure that, if he's putting himself to the test in something that's a realistic self-defense type scenario. And in competition, even though it's sport and there's, it's a controlled environment with rules and the settings and a referee to ensure safety, it's still you gain so much more out of competition in the sport than you do just rolling, because you have, the intensity that goes in prepping for it. You have the mental aspect. You have, someone who is actually trained. Of course, you're going to compete against someone who has relatively the same amount of training, but you have that aspect where they're going in with the same intent. They're trying to beat you. So the way I like to put it is that one competition equals about 50 days on the mat when you're training, because all your mistakes get magnified, your movements, and you can really see what sticks and what's instinct and what's not. And that is a key thing to developing your game. So he kept going, one after another, and he was losing, but he wasn't. The surprise part, he wasn't losing by submissions. He was losing by points, and he was taking these guys down. Shortly after that first competition is when, actually it was through Chris Haueter, was telling me about the guys out in England, because he's got several combat bases out there. And that's initially how I met Sam Sheriff. And Chris and I partnered up. We went to England, do like an England tour, jiu-jitsu, and so we got to train with the Royal Army, and then we went up to the Royal Marine Commandos training center and met up with Sam. And so this was basically the infancy stage of their foundation. And so it started out initially as like a rough draft of the Royal Marines Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I don't even think it was foundation at the time. It might have been. But the intent was to develop a mirror image of Weedify over in England for the British troops. And so literally just handed them everything that we're doing, how we're doing it, when we're doing it, how we're, the future we're, trying to achieve. He took all that, ran with it, and started doing things that we didn't even think about. It was incredible. So we were learning from him now, just really quickly, the marketing aspect of it, and how they're reaching out and how they're labeling things and how they're bringing people in. It was incredible, So it was a learning experience for me as well, and for the guys on Weedify to try to ramp it up and make it a more national thing. And then Mark, of course, came in, and it was kind of odd how Joey and I were the partner for Weedify, and then they found another triple amputee for reworking doing the same thing. I'm not sure if Sam told you, but the next step is actually we've been doing a lot of talks with veteran grappling in Australia. So this gentleman out there called Scott Steer is a former Australian SAS, and we're actually in talks with them, trying to help them set up. It's the exact same thing in Australia. So we're working the different countries. Possibly the next step is in Canada. But it's whoever's passionate about that is more than, to me, it makes more of a difference than anything else if they're passionate about their cause. And Sam was 100%. First day I met him, you could see it just oozed out of him, just wanting to be there, sharing an experience to make sure that you didn't lose any brethren to something that we've lost way too many to.
Yeah,
I
think it's starting with, like you said, spicing things up, taking your trade, like you take for granted, we take for granted for so long that you do a certain thing. I've even had that in business, other things in my life where it's so exciting for a while, and then things start to die. You start losing that, so you have to continually find different ways to keep that flame going. And I think the best way to keep that flame going is staying involved in doing these type of things. I find in business, and a lot of times guys get out and they can become successful in whatever it is they're doing. They still have that component of that purpose that's missing. That it's no longer about the greater cause. Now it's what they're doing is about their business or whatever. So they're missing that link, and you need to have that you need to have that with you. So being involved with stuff like this, that keeps the flame going, man.
So when you first got out, though, what was the hardest thing, coming down here? I mean, I don't want to lead you down a path, but what was the hardest thing for you?
I think having that true sense of that purpose of today, like what I do matters for somebody else. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Okay, we're going out to the different AO to take somebody there to make sure that they're safe. Like me and my guys, our job is to make sure that dude gets home safe every night. And then once that's gone, you don't have that same sense of, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to get up and train. I'm going to get up because I got to make sure I'm staying in the fight for my family and myself, which you can use that, but it's still missing that component of having that purpose that you need to be doing something for the greater good of all.
Yes.
And that's what you get in the military or as a police officer or something like that. So, and I actually still fight. I still have problems with that, dude. I still fight that. So doing stuff like this, and that's kind of why I want to do it. I got bored with business, man. I got bored with it. And then meeting the reorg guys and you and starting this thing has kind of got that flame going again for myself. Awesome. So yeah, man. And then meeting other guys that are also like-minded and doing similar things, or maybe going through similar situations, coming together and then building something cooler, together. So that's what I love, dude. And I think it's so important. And if you're not doing it, you're gonna find yourself in trouble, And meeting you guys and Sam, like you said, he's such a genuine guy. He's a good, genuine guy that's truly passionate about what he does. And it's cool to see something grow, it's something that's growing, and I can see it with both of those foundations. So that's, it's great to finally have you down here and get to see your side of it and understand your passion. And I think that's everything what you just said. You got to keep things you got to keep that spice going. You got to keep that flame going, because it is hard. And so you got to push yourself to find something that fuels you again.
Yeah. The other issue was, and again, before we even started doing this, was looking at the different veteran organizations that were out there. And I always like to preface this point with, I'm not speaking ill of any legitimate veteran foundation out there by any means. But going on these hunting trips, they're great, but they're temporary. buying a house for one of the veterans, honestly, in my opinion, is not a good idea. Because they get to these homes and then everyone's like, hey, congratulations, thank you for your service. Here's a check. Here's a photo op. Blah blah blah.
And
6 months later, they're alone again. They have access to alcohol. They have plenty of drugs from the VA, and this is one of the catalysts for the high suicide ratio that we have in veterans. The scuba trips and these are all great things. And again, I don't want to come across as being negative, but where we felt there was a gap was something they can do every day. That reintegration back into society.
And I think that responsibility, like today, dude, I got to go train, so I can't.
Yes.
Or tomorrow I got to train, so I can't do drink.
Yeah.
I can't do this shit. I got to go to sleep. I got to get up tomorrow. And I got to train. I got to put on my uniform. I got to fucking.
Yep.
I got to be there for my people there. Like.
Now, what does that sound like right there?
Yeah, jiu-jitsu.
It sounds like a sense of purpose.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And that's why I think that
you become the sense of purpose. You become that purpose. I need to do this for myself, so I can make sure that everyone around me is good as well. I cannot protect my family if I'm a shitbag.
Yeah.
And then they start to realize that, and they realize they can be better. They don't have to be in the slump. They have that support that they need. They have other people that are struggling the same way they were, if not worse. And putting them in an environment like that where they can actually have that same alpha male, or alpha female as well, because we have females in the foundation as well, where they can actually release that stress, to have that problem solving mentality. You would not be in the position that you're in if you didn't like to solve problems. Yeah. Bottom line, I guarantee you, because business is all about solving problems. And it's the same thing with jiu-jitsu. That's the beauty of it. That's why 23 years later, I'm still not burned out on it, because I'll watch one guy do something I literally have never seen in 23 years of doing this. I'm like, oh, here it starts all over again, so you start to learn that, you start to move forward. But, having that sense of camaraderie that you had is a huge factor, and it's something they can do every day, and it's something that can, the people creating those environments that we were doing with Weedify affiliations. I think we're over like 400 now, or 450 affiliations.
I just heard from
nationwide.
that Ricardo today, said that they just got approved right down the street,
Yeah.
And he's got a seminar on the 5th, so yeah, I think it's like you said, some of those things are great and I've worked with a lot of foundations too since I've started, from home builds to giving motorcycles away, all kinds of stuff. And that stuff, like you said, is temporary, man. Yeah. It really is. I think these guys need something that's more permanent and more daily. So from what I've seen, and I've worked with adaptive athletes as well, Team SAR, we were the first sponsors from them, because nobody cared about them doing CrossFit or whatever. And then that thing's grown, and to see the people that are getting involved, and for those people, those adaptive athletes saying the same thing. I want to compete against full body, I want to, and they compete against full, and they crush it, and it's, to me, that's motivating. And to see guys like Mark or some of these guys getting in there and getting it on, and continuing that mindset, gives me no excuse, so that stuff just blows me away, and keeps me fueled. So these types of organizations like Weedify and Reorg and Team SAR and stuff like that, it's just, it keeps us in check, man. And that's Absolutely. What we need. We need to be kept in check. We need to have that responsibility. We need to have that purpose to get up and get that sweat on. And like I said, a lot of these guys and gals come from that type of personality and mindset where you got to be pushed, you got to be training, you got to be fighting, you got to be moving forward. And if you don't do that, you're gonna put that energy into bad things, and that's where guys get into trouble. So I love what you're doing with the foundation and getting guys. Fucking motivates me, dude. So getting these guys back in and truly caring about them, man. And then that gives you your sense of purpose too. You're a professional. You're a professor. You've so now you're giving back, and it probably fuels you a lot as well, I would imagine.
Oh, so, absolutely. I think one of the biggest, one of the best moments I had was going to different places, doing different seminars, different areas, different states, and meeting ambassadors for Weedify that I've never met before. I'm like, I don't know who you are, but you're part of the organization. And then realizing that we have like hundreds of them all over the place, and just to see it grow immensely. And as much as I'd love to take the credit for Weedify being at the place it is, it's not me. It's the people involved. Travis Larson is current president right now. He's taken this to entirely new heights, and even getting away from just the jiu-jitsu community, trying to make jiu-jitsu a household name where people understand what it's for and the benefits of it, especially linked for veterans. TJ Kroitzek, Mike Anderson, Cox, there's a plethora of people that are behind the scenes that you rarely get to see or hear about, that are really doing, working the grinding the gears of this foundation and taking it to entirely new heights. It'd be wrong of me definitely to overlook, and not to mention them, because they are the heart and soul of this foundation. And I couldn't be happier that they chose to be with us. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think, in greatness happens, and those circles start to form, with the right people doing the right things together with that same vision. And it's just the same in business. It's not just, you cannot do everything. You got to have, it's all the people behind the scenes, man, that are making things happen. But those have to be the right people as well,
You might have a vision of it, but to actually execute that vision, you need specialists,
right?
Just like anything else. I'm not a subject matter expert in everything, but I know people that are.
Right.
That's what really makes it. And it's taken me a long time to kind of understand that about business as well. But I realized that, you have to be familiarized with everything, but you can't be a subject matter expert in everything.
No, it's not going to happen. It's like accounting, bro. Like, I'm not going to sit down and I'm going to hire a good accountant so I could focus on what I'm good at, And sometimes it is hard for us because we want to kind of be involved with everything. Yeah. So sometimes it's like, I'm going to let that go, and I'm just going to focus on my thing, what I'm good at. As long as that person's a specialist, like you said, I've assigned the right person to run that project.
And over your abacus, back to your accountant.
Right, right, dude. Yeah, man, I don't Excel sheets and all that, man. That's not my thing. But it's all about the people, man, that you're with and around, and you're definitely one of those guys, dude. So anybody out there, make sure you go check out Weedify Foundation, Reorg Foundation. They're on online. You can find them on their website and their social media, and you can kind of really get a good feel for what these guys are doing.
Pretty soon, veteran grappling in Australia. They're been coming up pretty fast too. Yeah,
and just see, it's cool to see what you guys do in the next few years and grow that out. So
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's gonna be badass, dude. Well, man, dude. Yeah, I love it, dude. You're a cool guy, man. You're a real cool guy, man. And I'm really excited that you were able to come down here and share some of your thoughts and mindset and some of your past with some guys. I get messages from guys all the time about some of the stuff we brought up, man. So I hope that somebody can get something out of it, and learn something and get better in some way, shape, or fashion, form. Sorry, my phone's going off. I also saw there was a hotline as well on your website, so anybody that's needs to call in, there's a hotline on the bottom of the website there with the number. Make sure you're talking to people and staying in the fight and being around the right folks and staying away from the bad stuff out there. So,
and if it's jiu-jitsu that isn't your thing and you tried it out and it just isn't your thing, and this is why we have like the program set up for 6 months. If it works for you, continue another 6 months, but get help somewhere. Get assistance somewhere. You're not an invalid. You're fully aware, capable of controlling your life, but do so in a way that will build your life, not destroy it. That's the biggest thing, and we never have claimed that Weedify or Jiu-Jitsu is the solution. Never, ever, not a single time. We've always presented it as it's a solution, and it's a solution that has worked really, really well for a lot of people. That's what we try to leave it at. Just try it out, see if it does, and then you're taking the first step to kind of bettering yourself. But that's the other thing about the foundation that we really were pushing, was you have to want to help yourself. We want you to get better to blue in the face. If you don't want it, we can't do anything for you. And so that it also takes that initiative and that responsibility out of everyone else's hands and puts it directly in yours. You want to get better? Yes. All right. This is what you need to do. This is a way of doing it. If you're not wanting, you just want handouts, then this is the right place or the right foundation for you. And we try to make that abundantly clear in the mission statement. And when we talk to people, because they actually have to send them like video interviews and like why they feel they want to do that. And so it's evolved into a really good program where we're getting the right people in, and those people that after they go through the year of it, they're becoming ambassadors, and those ambassadors are telling about their story, and it just keeps multiplying after that. So I couldn't be happier with it.
Yeah, that's great. You guys are doing great stuff. I love it, man. Keep doing it, and we'll talk offline too. We'd like to get more involved with you guys and see what we can do to help spread the word and help grow as well. So love it. So dude, last thing I want to talk about real quick, Tier 1 training facility. So that's your training group.
So just recently made a switch. I'm ranked under Chris Haueter. So we decided strength in numbers. So I decided to switch to combat-based Texas and Shebaro Jiu-Jitsu. So that's the official name of the training facility that I have out in Dallas right now.
Okay, so you're in Dallas.
Yeah, just north of Dallas. McKinney, Texas is just north.
What was that school that was up there, McKinney? CQ. It was some SF guys had a course up there we went through probably 6 years ago. It was at McKinney. It was at one of the an old facility there, CQD or something like that. I don't know. I can't remember. Anyway, dude, so you got that. Are you still active in your tactical training as well then?
To an extent. So I developed gun sights for pistol about 7 years ago. And managed to get 2 patents out of it. So that's where I kind of stay back on the range, is to kind of like R&D for that. We're releasing on Black Friday. So basically they're horizontal line sights. So instead of using the dots, we're using straight line. So instead of having to match up the 3 dots and just make a fucking straight line and you're done, there's your sight alignment.
Wow.
Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
Right. I definitely want to check one of those out then, man. Dude. So also entrepreneur, businessman, freaking visionary. Love it. It's cool stuff, man. Never enough time in the day, right?
Exactly.
That's what I don't give with people. Like, I'm bored. It's like, dude, what? How? There's so much going on. Well, dude, thanks again for coming down. You're a freaking cool guy, dude, and I love what you're doing. Love what you're about, man. And keep doing what you're doing, and look forward to having you out here again soon.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Right on, brother.
Appreciate it.
Welcome to the Going Rogue with Wes Whitlock podcast.